Have you ever been told that you need to be warmer in a meeting and then told that you need to be more assertive in your next review? Yeah, me too. Here's the thing about being a woman in leadership. You're playing a game where the rules keep changing. Be nice enough to be liked, but not so nice that you're overlooked. Be assertive enough to be respected, but not so assertive you're called difficult. This is what researchers call the likability trap, and it's one of the biggest reasons that women get stuck in their careers. So today I'm going to break down exactly how this trap works and why it keeps women from getting promoted, and most importantly, how to escape it without losing yourself in the process. In this episode, you'll learn what the likability trap actually looks like at work so you can spot it when it's happening to you. And I'll share why traditional assertiveness training often backfires for women and what actually works instead. I'm Jill Avey, a career success coach, and this is SisterSmart Leadership, the show that explores how women can rise from director to vice president and beyond by fully leaning into their feminine energy as their biggest advantage. Let's get you one step closer to the recognition and promotion you deserve. We'll talk about how to be more authoritative without coming across as cold or harsh. And I'll give you practical ways to set professional boundaries so that people will actually respect those. And we'll unpack the difference between being called bossy versus being seen as confident. By the end of the episode, you're going to have a framework for leading authentically and one that honors who you are instead of asking you to become someone else. Before I get started, I want to stop and welcome you to season 4 of the SisterSmart Leadership Podcast. I can't believe that it's been a year since my last episode, and I'm super excited to be back talking about all the things that women need to be successful in their work and life. So if you're new to the show, you'll want to go back to the start from the beginning because the first 3 seasons were packed full of information about how to get promoted, even among all the complexities that women leaders face. Honestly, none of that has changed since I started the show. And if anything, I think it's more important today than ever for women to step up and start leading at the higher levels. And it's my mission to help you get there. Okay, let's dive in. Let me tell you about a client I'll call Maria. She came to me after being passed over for a VP role for the 3rd time. Each time her feedback was different. The first time she was told she needed to build stronger relationships with senior leaders, so she worked on that. She had coffee chats, she showed up at company events, and she made sure that people knew who she was. The second time, she was told that she wasn't visible enough in executive meetings, so she started speaking up more. She shared her ideas. She challenged assumptions when she disagreed. And the third time, she was told that she could come across as a bit aggressive. When Maria told me this story, she looked exhausted, not just frustrated, exhausted from trying to figure out what version of herself she was supposed to be. This is the likability trap in action, and Maria is not alone. So here's how the likability trap plays out at work. Let's bring it back to the basics. What is the likability trap really? Research from one of my professors at Columbia Business School, Frank Flynn, found something fascinating. When people were shown the same resume with either a man's name or a woman's name attached, the results were predictable and frustrating. The man was seen as both competent and likable, and the woman was seen as competent or likable, but rarely both. He'd given them the exact same resume of the successful venture capitalist Heidi Rosen, but he changed the name to Howard on half of them. Ugh. This is the double bind. Men can be respected and liked at the same time, but women often have to choose. So here's how this shows up at work. You hold a firm boundary on a deadline, and suddenly you're difficult to work with. You're warm and supportive with your team, and suddenly you're not strategic enough for the next level. You advocate for your ideas, but you're too pushy. You stay quiet and let others take the lead, and now you're not showing enough initiative. The trap isn't that you're doing anything wrong. The trap is that you're being evaluated on a different scale. So in our SisterSmart program, we use gender socialization theory to help women understand these dynamics, not so they can feel helpless about them, but so that they can see what's actually happening and respond strategically. Because when you don't know that the trap exists, you end up like Maria, constantly shape-shifting, trying to be warmer and then more assertive and then warmer again, exhausting yourself, chasing feedback that contradicts itself. And when you understand that trap, you can stop playing that game altogether. The problem is that traditional women's assertiveness training often backfires. So here's where I might say something a little bit controversial. Most assertiveness training for women is based on a male model of leadership, and it often makes things worse. I know because I fell into this trap myself. Earlier in my career, I was told to be more assertive. So I read the books, which were all written by men about a male model of leadership. I watched my male mentors. I tried to copy what they did. And sometimes it worked. But a lot of times I came off too strong and I missed opportunities to collaborate better. The same behaviors that my male colleagues made them seem confident made me seem aggressive. And in fact, my nickname at one company was Sweet Dragon. Here's what I've learned since becoming a coach and working with over 200 women leaders. Assertiveness is not about copying what works for men. It's about finding your own way to communicate with authenticity. Traditional assertiveness training says speak louder, take up more space, don't apologize, interrupt if you have to. That works for some women, but for many, it can feel like wearing a costume that doesn't fit. So what actually works? Leading with your feminine strengths while being still direct, using warmth strategically instead of abandoning it, and setting clear expectations with kindness instead of coldness. So one of my clients, Lexi, talked about this shift in her journey. She told me that she wanted to be a leader who was funny and kind and even a little goofy at times. And she didn't want to lose that because a couple of people didn't value humor and levity. So through our work together, she realized that she didn't have to. What she needed wasn't to become someone else. She needed to know what she valued and stay true to herself instead of trying to be what others wanted her to be. So that's a huge step in the right direction. So how can you be more authoritative without losing yourself? What does that even feel like? Being authoritative in a way that feels authentic. So let me share a framework that we use in SisterSmart. It's built on the research-backed model of executive presence from Bates Communication. And they found executive presence isn't one thing, it's actually 15 different facets across 5 categories. And this matters because you don't have to be good at all 15. You get to choose which facets you want to develop based on your authentic style. So for building authority specifically, here are 4 facets that make the biggest difference. So first, of course, is assertiveness. This is about speaking up in a way where you're raising issues without shutting others down. It's about valuing constructive conflict and working to find a collaborative solution that creates shared success. And secondly, we have intentionality. So this means being purposeful with your words and actions. Instead of speaking off the cuff, you prepare your key points before your important meetings. So take a few notes to put your viewpoint together so that you aren't thinking while you're talking. Our third one is projected confidence. So you notice that I said projected. You don't have to feel confident to appear confident. So this is how you carry yourself, your posture, your eye contact, the steadiness of your voice. And fourth is the one that people forget. It's concern. Yeah, concern. Showing genuine care for others actually increases your authority because people trust leaders who have their best interests at heart. So here's the magic. When you combine authority with warmth, you get something more powerful than either one alone. You get presence. And that's what I call winning their hearts and minds. The warmth piece is your superpower, not your weakness. So now that you understand how to increase your authority, let's talk about how you can say no to the things that hold you back without sacrificing your likability and your future relationships. So now let's get into the weeds on one of the hardest parts of escaping the likability trap, setting boundaries. Women often avoid setting boundaries because they've spent their whole life saying yes and making other people happy. And in many ways, that serves us well. So we say yes when we mean no, and we take on extra work that isn't in our scope. We let others interrupt us in meetings, and we check email all hours because we don't want to seem unavailable. But here's the irony. All that people pleasing, it actually undermines your authority. So when you don't have boundaries, people don't see you as accommodating. They see you as someone who can be pushed around. And one of my clients, Nadine, learned this the hard way. When she first came to me, she was working 60-hour weeks. She took on projects that weren't even in her scope because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. She was reactive instead of proactive, constantly putting out fires for other people. And guess what? She still hadn't been promoted. She'd watched her peers get promoted to VP while she stayed stuck. So here's how we turned that around. The first shift was recognizing that her boundaries weren't selfish, they were strategic. And every time that she said yes to something that was outside of her scope, she was saying no to the strategic work that would get her promoted. The second shift was learning how to set boundaries with kindness. You don't have to be harsh to be clear. So here's a phrase that I love. You can say, I want to help, but I also need to make sure that I'm delivering on my current priorities. Can we talk about timing? See, that's not cold, that's professional. And the third shift that she made was proactive communication. So instead of waiting to be asked for things and then having to say no, Nadine started proactively sharing what she was focused on and why, so that when people understood her priorities, they stopped asking her to take on random things. And the result was so exciting. Nadine reduced her work hours from 60 to 36 while her team improved their performance. And yes, she finally got that promotion to VP. So now let's talk about that word bossy. Have you ever noticed that men are rarely called bossy? I've never heard it myself. A man gives direct feedback, and that's called straightforward. A woman gives us the same feedback, and it's called bossy. As well, a man who holds high standards is driven, and a woman who holds high standards is demanding. This is the double standard, and pretending it doesn't exist doesn't help anyone. So what do we do about this? So first, we name it. Not in a complaining way, but in a strategic way. So when you understand that you're being held to a different standard, you can stop wasting energy wondering what's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. The measuring stick is crooked. And second, we can use what I call the warmth sandwich. Now, please note, this is not the shit sandwich that we want to avoid when giving feedback, where you say something nice, give a correction, and then say something nice to make them feel better. Instead, when you need to deliver direct feedback or push back on something, I want you to first lead with connection, then deliver your message clearly, and then close with support. So here's an example. Instead of saying, "This report isn't what I wanted, please redo it," try instead, "I appreciate the effort you put into this. I need to see the data presented differently to tell the story we discussed. And here's what I'm looking for. And I'm happy to talk you through this if that would help." So see, that's the same message, but different reception. We brought that warmth into it. And we did that by showing the support. So this structure shows you that you're here by their side, supporting them and believing in them, and you're pushing them to do more and to raise their standards. Third, we need to build relationships before we need them. When people know you and like you and trust you, they interpret your directness through a lens of positive intent. So they assume that you're being helpful, not harsh, because they have that background on you. So this is why the warmth piece matters. It's not about being fake nice. It's about genuinely caring about the people that you work with and letting that show. And so the fourth thing here is that we nip problems in the bud. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is women wait too long to address issues because they don't want to be seen as difficult. But small problems become big problems. And the longer you wait, the more frustrated you get, the harder it is to address things calmly. So early, kind, and clear. That's the formula. So here's the thing about the likability trap. You can't escape it by becoming more likable, and you can't escape it by giving up on being liked entirely. The way out is authenticity. It's knowing who you are, what you stand for, and how you want to show up. Then building the skills to communicate that clearly while still connecting with others. In our SisterSmart program, this is exactly what we help people do. Through our 7-step process, we work on developing the emotional balance so that you're not derailed by people's reactions. And then we help you know your genius so you can truly understand what your authenticity actually looks like. And we build executive presence that fits your authentic style. We create clarity so that you're focused on what actually matters to your advancement. Because here's what I know to be true. Women are consistently rated as better leaders. The research is clear on this. The problem isn't our leadership. The problem is a system that was built for a different kind of leader. And when you understand that, you stop trying to fit a mold that was never designed for you. And you can start leading in a way that works for you, your team, and the organizations that are lucky enough to have you. I always like to end with 3 shifts that you can make today to start escaping the likability trap. So first, notice when you're shape-shifting. This week, I want you to pay attention to how often you change your approach based on who you're with. Sometimes that's good, but are you being strategic or are you exhausting yourself trying to be what everyone else wants? So start a small journal or a note in your phone and note it each time that you catch yourself doing this. And second, I want you to practice the warmth sandwich. Next time you need to give direct feedback or push back on something, try leading with connection, delivering your message clearly, and then closing with support. And notice how differently people respond. And then third, set one boundary this week. Just one. It could be leaving work at a reasonable hour, saying no to a meeting that isn't in your scope, or asking somebody to let you finish your thought when before they respond. Start small and notice what happens. Thanks for joining me today to talk about the likability trap. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you. So have you experienced the likability trap at your work? What did that look like for you? Or which of the 3 shifts are you going to try first? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to go deeper on developing your executive presence in a way that honors your authentic style, download my private podcast on the 7-Step Passport to Promotion. It's on the SisterSmart.com website, and I'll put the link in the show notes. You'll hear more stories from women like Lexi and Nadine who've escaped that likability trap and gotten promoted without losing themselves. So if you're a female leader who wants to make a bigger impact by leading at a higher level in your career, subscribe either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm on a mission to help more women succeed in leadership so that the world gets the benefit of what women bring to leadership. And if that's aligned with you, I'd love to have you be part of this community and tune in to more episodes on women's leadership that will support more success for us all. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're ready to fully lean into your feminine leadership and get promoted from director to vice president and beyond, hit that subscribe button so you'll get all the episodes to come. And check out the recommended video here to see how women are rising up without playing by the old rules that built these male-dominated industries and systems.